My guest on 12 Minutes With is Anneleen Van Bossuyt, Belgium's Minister of Asylum, Migration and Social Integration. She's been in the role since last February and is responsible for one of the federal government's major priorities, getting tougher on migration. Minister, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here.
You're welcome. With pleasure.
So, you're now tasked with implementing what your Prime Minister has described as the strictest, toughest migration policy in Belgium's history. What does that mean?
Well, first of all, I think it's important that we change the trend that we have seen since many years in Belgium. I really inherited a crisis. Just to show it with some figures, in 2024 in Belgium we had 40,000 asylum applications, and almost half of them, 15,000 of them, were secondary migration. So people who already applied in another member state or even received protection in another member state. The cost for asylum in our country, it's 1 billion euros a year, and we see that the weight that it puts on our social welfare, on our housing, on our also education system, on our safety, it has become too much.
A major focus for you is cutting on the number of asylum claims, including by discouraging people from coming here and seeking asylum. Is it right to be targeting those people who are potentially fleeing oppressive regimes or war and conflict?
Yeah, but as I showed with the numbers I just mentioned, so over the 40,000 applications, 15,000 of them were from people who already had protection in another member state or applied for asylum in another member state. So then you see that we can't continue to have this trend in Belgium. We were too long the country of milk and honey. Our social welfare system, but also on family reunification. So that's why we took some measures. It was, on the one hand, we decided to no longer give reception to people who already have protection in another member state. And secondly, also we go very much stricter on family reunification by have a higher income level that we demand from people.
And on those asylum seekers arriving here, there has been a lot of criticism in recent years that the system of housing asylum seekers is inhumane, it's not respecting basic fundamental rights, and also criticism that it's engineering a homelessness crisis by pushing people out on the streets. There was a case recently in October where an Afghan family, a court found that Belgium had failed to provide refuge for them and that they were sleeping on the streets. There are many, many other examples. Are you taking measures to make sure that this situation is improved?
Yeah, the measures we are taking are literally to avoid these kind of situations. So the families that we are now told sometimes in the media that have to sleep on the street, it concerns families who already have protection in another member state.
But is it right to let them sleep on the streets?
But they don't have to sleep on the street. They have protection in another member state, so they decided to continue to travel towards another member state, in this case Belgium. But then they can have reception in a return center in Belgium to return to the country where they have protection, but they don't come to these return centers. So that's the second time that they decide to not have the possibilities that are offered. But as of today, no person who has the right on reception has to sleep on the streets in Belgium, and that's a big difference with the situation that we have seen in the former years.
There have, however, been several court rulings, internationally and nationally, against the historical failures as well, to provide refuge protection for these people. Do you accept that there has been irregularities, legally speaking, in the way that this policy has been carried out? And is that acceptable to you?
Well, we don't do anything that we can't do according to European law. When it concerns the fines for convictions, I indeed decided not to pay them. And why? Because I have to work with taxpayers' money. I can only spend it one time. And so I can do two things. Either I spend the money on paying the fines, and then we don't have any change in our policy. Or I don't pay the fine, but I use this money to change our policy and to have a future-proof solution so that in the end we don't have to pay any fines anymore. And for me, it's clear I've chosen for the second way.
So you will not pay those fines,
No.
and you're not afraid that that will set a dangerous precedent?
Well, I'm not the first one who doesn't pay the fines. So.
Okay. I want to move on because we talk about returns. This is also a big European priority. There are more than 100,000 people, I believe, here in Belgium without the right to be here illegally. But the amount of returns is still relatively low. What do you need in order to be able to allow people who do not have the right to stay here to return to their home countries? Do you need support from Brussels on this?
Well, I can say that it's not a Belgian challenge, it's really like a European challenge, because we see that also at European level only 1 in 5 people who have to return to their home country returns. So what do we do at national level? We have decided that we will have a whole of government approach. So what do we mean by that? It's that we will relate development aid with the way in which the countries of origin take back their nationals,
so they have to take back in order to receive development aid.
For example, indeed, also visa policy can be linked to it. So that's what we mean by the whole of government approach. But I'm convinced of the fact that if we would do that at European level, we have much more leverage at European level towards the countries of origin to use, and that's why we really need this European cooperation.
And do you see political appetite amongst your European counterparts for this?
Of course, I see it. We see that the spirits are changing also at European level. The Danish presidency has done very, very good work to move forwards on this topic, on the return hubs, for example, and other possible solutions. So we see that also at European level, things are moving forward.
And on the return hubs, briefly, because you were recently on a mission to Albania and Kosovo for a solution to overcrowded prisons in Belgium. Could renting or building prison space or other certain camps in third countries be a solution for Belgium?
Yeah, but that's we are looking at every possible solution that we can have to have a higher return rate. That's one of the possibilities that we are looking into together with the Minister of Justice.
And in the Western Balkans specifically, you see this as a potential partner?
We have been there, we have spoken with the responsible ministers, but maybe in future there will also other possibilities or countries. So what we are looking for with the prison capacity in other countries, it's about for people who are now in our prisons and who should be and who we want to place in a prison, for example, in another country. With Albania, it was specifically on Albanians who are in our prison so that they would have their sentence in Albania. For Kosovo, it was for people who are in illegal stay in Belgium but in our prisons, because 1 out of 3 people who are in our prisons are people in irregular stay, illegal stay.
So you're not considering return hubs for people here in an irregular situation but have not committed crimes?
That's where we are looking at the European level with the return regulation and the possibility for return hubs. I think there can be a possibility where we look at the European level.
And very briefly, on returns as well, the situation of Afghans here. You've asked the EU for help in striking a deal with the Taliban in order to facilitate the returns of Afghan nationals here irregularly. Have you made progress on that?
Well, it's a very big problem. It's a problem of the fact that a lot of Afghan people come to Belgium, apply for asylum, but don't get protection. But then they receive an order to leave the territory. but there it ends. We can't have any forced returns. Why? Because you are dependent of the country of origin for ID documents, for example. So we are in a limbo at the moment. So I wrote a letter to the European Commissioner. It was subscribed by 20 other member states. So I think the signal is very clear. The Commission has told us that we will take steps. We are looking now with the European Commission how we can move forward on this subject.
But if there were a deal with the Taliban in order to facilitate these kind of returns, would you be willing to send women and children back to Taliban rule?
Yeah, but that's something that is always said. But we are not sending back people who got protection in our country, and I can be quite reassured that women who fled for the Taliban regime won't be sent back because they will be the persons who got protection.
Final question. On the European level, we have this new pact on migration that is meant to enter into force in June this year. Do you think it's going to make a difference?
Well, I hope it will make a difference, but the success of the pact will depend on the way in which countries are getting into their responsibilities that are in the pact. And I think in Belgium we have done more than our fair share. The fair share for Belgium, it's around 3.5%. We were until now in the top 5 of asylum applications in Europe. So we have done more than our part. So that's why we choose to pay instead of receiving people.
Are you concerned that countries such as Hungary and Slovakia could just flout the rules and completely undermine the whole thing?
Well, I won't decide for other countries. I know what we will be doing. I've always told also to the European Commission that Belgium will be a loyal partner. So now we will see in practice how we will move forward.
Minister, thank you so much.
You're welcome.